Hey guys, welcome to another exciting video of Broken Arrow. Today I'm going to be showing you how I go about using my recon, setting up a perimeter, filling in gaps, determining where enemy units may infiltrate from, understanding like the axis of an enemy attack, and some really good combined arms. So in a sec, I'm going to show you, I'm going to try and do a little illustration of what I'm looking at, why I'm looking at it, and how I go about using my recon to determine where to put my anti-tank units and my anti-air a bit. And once you kind of see how I go about analyzing a map, roadways, this should help you with your own gameplay, maybe in this, Warno, or just in general. So it's gonna be a pretty good video, and I'll show you how to go about making a pretty good perimeter so that you can go ahead and create a front line and then propel that into maybe an attack, a flank, however you want to go about performing your next move. So let's get started. So first off, what you want to do is identify the potential axis or axes of attack for your opponent or enemy units. So as you can see, we have axis 1, which is one main road to the right there, which is a potential hotspot for enemy infantry to or armor to infiltrate. Then you have axis 2, which is another main road junction off to the left. Then you have axis 3. Now, there is going to be some form of access or entryway on every map, major road junctions or whatnot, bridges, that you're going to want to identify in the first half of the game as quickly as you can, so that way you can understand where you want to put your recon. Second, when you call in your recon, you generally want to have them in areas that have a view of these major routes or points to ingress into your safe zone. So as you can see, I have the green circles. That's just a rudimentary way of showing you where I ideally would want to place my recon units so that they can have the best view of what may be approaching me, so I can better understand how to maneuver my reserve units or where there may be weaknesses in the enemy's front line. So now that I've identified the potential axes of attack, I'm going to let the video play so that I can show you my next form of thought on how I go about setting up my perimeter and my defenses to allow me to create a front line.
Приказ понял, выезжаем. Уже еду. Двигай жопой! боеприпасы. Логистика готова. Десант готов. Погнали. Работаем. Проникаем. Зенитки, слушаю. Специалисты по противовоздушной обороне готовы. Кого нейтрализовать? Граната идет первой. Транспорт заказывали? Держи ухо востро. Тише воды. Работаем. Понял. Двигаюсь к точке. Принял. Выдвигаюсь. Дорога наш дом. Логистика здесь. Выдвигаемся.
So right here, you guys see me looking at the different houses and fidgeting the camera around a lot. So what I'm actually doing is, given the different routes of attack that I pointed out earlier, I'm actually trying to determine the best fields of fire for some air-to-ground or tow missiles to give me the best, I guess, coverage area for my objective zone behind me. And I'm going to show you I'm going to edit a picture and show you what I was thinking in this moment. So let's transition to that. So as you can see with my drawings, I'm trying my best here. I have the blue cones of fire are ideally where I would want to place my tow missiles or my anti-tank units. So I want to make sure I'm covering both axes. You know, axis 2, I want to have some kind of tow emplacement there in case I get some kind of frontal assault from axis 2 with a lot of armor. Then I also, so 1 and 2 are covering axis 2. Now I have 3 and 4, which are covering axis 1. And they're kind of direct, but on the flanks a bit to enable some form of side shots on any enemy armor that comes in. Now this is your first line of defense. Ideally, you want that further ahead to spoil or disrupt any kind of enemy armor that may potentially come in and try and reach the objective. Now, you may look at this picture and think, what about axis 3? Well, as you can see, it's a pretty obstacle heavy area with all the houses and the buildings and the forest. So you're not going to want to put a tow missile anywhere in that area because the line of sight just isn't there for it. So my plan with axis 3 was to get a platoon of infantry to just block and clog up those 2 roadway junctions and just harass any kind of enemy armor that may be coming in to take advantage of my weak flank if my teammate happens to fall or, you know, what have you. So this is the thought process. You know, you had phase 1 with the recon. Now you've got phase 2 with setting up your defense near perimeter, and then phase 3 will come later on. Another thing that I want to note, which you will see here in a second, is the importance of recon. Not only do you want to recon to go out and seek the enemy, but recon is essential for counter reconnaissance. You'll know that some of your regular units, like your Motostrelki, Marines, will not be able to spot enemy recon snipers or groups. So you want to have a nice blanket of recon as well to prevent the enemy's reconnaissance as well, because the opponent's going to try and get recon sniper team in here, but since I have that net of safety and surveillance out, I'm able to prevent that and keep eyes outside of my objective zone. Because the key with recon is not only finding the enemy, but keeping the front line or area behind your front line unseen, because if the enemy can't harass you with artillery and long range fire or indirect fire, you're winning, and you'll see how that plays out as well later in the video.
Транспорт на связи. Очистить трюм! Назад! Так, командир. Уже еду. Уже иду. Поддай газку. Выдвигаемся. Разведка ВДВ слушает. Разведка ВДВ на связи. Выше нас только звезды. Работаем. Без разведки ни шагу. Куда вас довести? Сделаю. Да, командир.
And as you can see, based on my predetermined axis of attack, look at what's approaching from axis number 1. You've got a platoon of Abrams, or 2 Abrams and a Bradley, along the predicted axis of attack, which is why it is so important to understand your avenues. Most people wouldn't even think to look at this side of the map, but as you can see, I was correct in my thinking. And then you can also see the Abrams coming in from axis 2. So yeah, guys, this is the importance of reading a map and understanding how the flow of battle can take place, and just reading up on battle doctrine when if you're bored or a nerd like myself. But yeah, so predicting routes of attack, it was pretty successful in what I was doing, as you can see. So it's going to pay off in the long run. And having to do all this in 30 seconds is a bit difficult. But the more you do this, the more you kind of try to predict where different flows can be. You'll get better at that.
Выпрыгивай! АТР специального назначения. Тихо, тихо. Снабжение заказывали? Выдвигаюсь. Десант готов. Разведка ВДВ на связи. Тактический грузовик готов к перевозке. Транспорт есть, ведем бой. Пехотинцы ждут ваших приказов. Принял, зачищаем. ВДВ здесь. Выше нас только звезды. Понял. Грузовик снабжения готов к транспортировке. Разгружай картоху. Голубые береты на связи. Работаем. Проникаем. Заводи мотор. В пути.
due to having my recon ahead in such a manner, my teammate is able to provide great mutual close air support and handle these large clumps of enemy armor, which is a great benefit to not only myself but our team as well, preventing any kind of outward pushes on the flank. So now, as you can see, I have the recon out, and it's doing what it needs to kind of seek out and spot which axis may be used by my enemy or opponent. I have the infantry on the side managing these two intersections like I showed you on the map. And I have my sniper recon team that I'm going to slowly move around the edge there to kind of scout out the objective and see what I might be dealing with. So now that my front line is, I wouldn't even say my front line, more so my, defenses are a bit set up. Now you kind of want to move into logistics, artillery, and building up reserves, because you're going to use your reserves to either defend an attack or create an attack. It depends on the flow of the battle. So you'll see how I start to kind of build up my forces and lead into an attack on one of those two objectives in the future.
Нужны. Кого нейтрализовать? Принял. Тихо, тихо. Как привидение. Бегом, марш! Мы будем на позиции быстрее. Пути. Принял. Выдвигаемся. Спецназ выдавать слушает. Кого нейтрализовать? Выдвигаюсь. Пути! Мы в бою. Транспорт слушает. Разведгруппа в боевом режиме. Оружие на изготовку. Тяжелый транспорт здесь. Тактический грузовик готов к перевозке. Спецгруппа ждет ваших указаний. Давай, давай.
So I want to try and get my Spetsnaz unit back here because I noticed a lot of rocket artillery coming from that area. So I want to start to infiltrate a bit and see what's going on, and also help my teammate who's marking that area so he can get some accurate artillery on the enemy's positions there and just kind of disrupt their flow and their indirect fire support to their front line.
Спецгруппа ждет ваших указаний. Разведка слушает. Держи ухо востро. Спецназ выдавать слушает. Камов на приеме. Ракетная артиллерия слушает. Да, командир. Настроение в порядке, спасибо зарядке. Принял, выхожу. Держи ухо востро. Выполняю. Уже еду. Двигаюсь к точке. Разведка выдает
So I kind of want to take this time to go over my thought process in this moment here, because now I'm trying to think about where I would like to make a push along this front line and how to best go about using the resources that I have. So seeing that my recon has, and I'll show this on the map as well when I to draw this out, so it makes more sense. But I noticed that my specialized units have pretty much penetrated pretty far on the right side there. So I recognize that that could be a good avenue to attack the enemy, and I would probably have a really good likelihood of sneaking maybe a platoon or two fast travel down that right side. Obviously, I have it scouted out with recon, so I could ensure that they wouldn't be spotted, and I would basically be sneaking up the flank here since they don't have any enemy recon in the area because I've done some anti-reconnaissance myself. So that would be a way of understanding or knowing that your units would basically be invisible because you've scouted out the area. So that's what my initial plan was. You'll see later in the video I start pulling some platoon Motostrelki on the right. But then I kind of noticed that based on how the battle's going in the town center, I might want to reorganize and reform. So I'll kind of point it out, but you'll see where I make that gradual shift from let me envelop from the right or flank from the right and turn in to a direct assault on the city combined with rocket artillery and smoke. It's going to be a pretty beautiful display, but I'll go over it in here in just a sec. Well, this is just a simple picture of what my thought process was. I was thinking about sending a platoon or two with armor up this side here because I already had recon on both sides, and then turning in behind the objective. Something along those lines. I wasn't quite sure, but I did recognize that I did have a lot of recon on this right side, and I had it scouted out pretty well, so I was going to try and make a push through there. But you'll end up seeing what I decide to do later on. So up top here, you see that recon unit that I'm trying to sneak in ahead of the objective to give me a better picture of what I may potentially be dealing with. The enemy also airdropped some units on the objective, so I already have that rocket artillery in place. Like I said earlier, make sure you get your logistics in place to counter any kind of counterattack or momentum that your opponent tries to create. And seeing that airdrop come in and having that recon there to identify that airdrop, I'm able to saturate that entire area and I believe pretty much wipe out that entirety of that airdrop along with my teammate who hits it with, I believe, an airstrike of some sort, but that area just gets overly saturated and cleared out. Again, I'm able to spot a huge push of 2 platoons of enemy armor coming into the forest, and due to having that advanced recon, at least you want to have at least one forward scout. You know, even though you have the perimeter, you want to have at least one forward to kind of see what the enemy is doing. And because of that, I'm able to spot that 2 platoon of enemy tanks coming in and get my teammate to send that place to another realm. And that's another platoon or 2 of enemy tanks taken out before they can even get to the front line. So overly stressing the importance of having recon. Unfortunately, I lost him in that, but that was a good strike nonetheless. So, at this point, I'm starting to scan the map and determine the best route or point of attack. I know you saw earlier that I had that buildup of a platoon and a K-52 on the right there, and I was calling it another platoon as well of infantry. And now I'm starting to think, where do I want to send these guys? Well, where would I have the most success? I have my teammate on the left over here, all the way far left. Could I link up and maybe connect both our front lines and push to the center? Do I want to just come up to the right? What do I want to do? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this and then draw out another map so you can get a picture of what I'm thinking and why I decided to do what I did. And so let's get to it. So once again, apologies for the drawing. Do it the best I can here. So as you can see, you got two of the objectives here, 1 and 2, and my scribble of a front line. Apologies. So link 1, which is the green arrow, and then route 2 on the side with the green arrow. So based on looking at the map, I wanted to decide, I was trying to figure out where do I want to push here. If I push from attack point 1, I have the potential to link with my teammates on that side and have a more of a unified push into objective 2, which would make more sense. But I also know that objective 1 has been bombarded with a lot of artillery. I have a pretty good recon coverage in that area, so I'm positive that I would not have any problems with pushing that with some armor or mech infantry and getting there and taking the objective. But if I take objective 1, we could potentially have a two-prong envelopment of objective 2, which would be successful. Or if I take objective 2 and seeing how stacked my team is on the left, we could potentially take the objectives behind objective 2 and bypass objective 1, because if we take objective 2 and cut off the main entry to objective 1, it's as good as gone either way. So what you'll see is what I decide to do, and I decided to go with more of a pincer-like movement here, and I'll put some troops on the left side of attack point 1 and on the right side of attack point 1, and I'm going to screen those troops with smoke from my long-range howitzer, and then use artillery on objective 2 to saturate the area. And it's a beautiful display of combined arms. I may do a map description of how the attack was formed. I may not, but this was my thought process as far as jumping into the next phase of my game plan here.
Да, командир. Коробочка на приеме. Говори, куда накрыть. Транспорт ждет приказа. Приказ понял. Едем. Бог войны слушает. Без проблем. Только сначала запакуемся. Куда вас доставить? В пути. Принял. Выдвигаемся.
So now I'm starting to organize and look at the map like I showed earlier with that display, trying to determine where would be the best route of attack and set up my troops to put them in a position to be we're in a position to get the most success. And I'm using that K-52 that I have in the back as another force multiplier. I'm gonna have it ducked off behind some buildings and have it flying in OE, and then, wow, what a beautiful air support drop. That guy has been helping a lot on the flank. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna use that K-52 to help support the troops in the city, and maybe attack some buildings that may have some enemy infantry in it. I'm also gonna bring up some armor, and you're gonna see uh, some good building-to-building clearing, I guess you could say, with the armor in trail, taking out those heavy structures to help with the infantry. I'm also going to start getting my rocket artillery supplied, remember logistics, and get them set to do a bombardment of the area to soften it up before I get my infantry in there, along with that howitzer that you'll see come up in a minute to smoke out the objective. Now, before I do the attack, I want to get a good understanding of where the enemy is. So this is where, recon will come into play, or maybe some force recon, send in a unit, take some fire, figure out where the enemy defenses are, smoke, and pull them out. So basically a recon by fire in this sense. So I may not have to draw this out. I think you guys are going to get a pretty good understanding of what's going on here. So I might just leave it at that. So let's get into it.
ВДВ слушай. Логистика здесь. Да. Противотанковое подразделение на связи. Выше нас только звезды. Куда вас довести? Без разведки ни шагу. Транспорт здесь. Транспорт заказывали? Заводи мотор. Транспорт заказывали? Выдвигаемся. Да. Сделаю. Выдвигаемся на новую позицию. Арт-расчет на связи.
So let me go ahead and pull up a map so I can show you what the plan of attack is real quick. So as you can see here, the orange boxes 1 and 2 are where my rocket artillery sharks are going to go. You'll see once the video plays that there were some enemies in those areas, so those are the target points that I want to soften up before my ground forces push into the city. The white line is the smoke that I'm going to put for the artillery to smoke out the push of the infantry so they can close in on those high rises in those buildings near objective 1 or target 1 and 2. And the green arrows are my routes of attack. I'm not sending all units in one line of attack. I'm sending them more of a pincer-like movement that kind of joins up in the center here. And it's good to kind of have your forces spaced out so you're not a giant clump of targets if a enemy bomb or artillery or something comes in and takes them out. So pretty simple drawing, pretty simple plan, and you're going to see how well it's executed.
готов. Никто не выживет. Десант готов. Только ответный огонь. 333. ПВО, докладываю. ВДВ здесь. Т-80 вызывали? Транспорт ждет приказа. Уже еду. Пехота на приеме. Оставим только пепел. Транспорт, слушай. Баба с воздуха.
One thing to note with a breakthrough, if you encounter resistance, the main force keeps going. You peel off whatever forces are encountering the resistance, and they splinter off and attack while the main force keeps pushing forward. And that's how you want the flow of your attack to continue. Just wanted to point that out.
Свет тоже здесь. Быстрее! Быстрее! Куда вы зашли? Все выше и выше. Пехота на приеме. Не останавливаемся! ВДВ слушай. Транспорт на связи. Транспорт ждет приказа. Куда вас завезти? Пехота на связи. Какие ваши указания? Меняем ППД. Зачистить здание. Бронетранспортер на связи. Приказ понял. Выезжаем. Еду туда. Аллигатор на связи. Скроемся за деревьями. Катер здесь. Куда вас завезти? Туры, слушаю. Транспорт здесь. Пехотинцы ждут ваших приказов. Принял. Выдвигаемся. Хороший дом для обороны. Приказ понял. Едем. Ракетная артиллерия на связи. Без
Another thing I want to point out is when you capture an objective, you don't want to sit your units on the objective. It's because that is going to be the primary fixation for enemy artillery once you capture it. The key to movement after capturing an objective is to either fall back behind the objective and then use artillery to prevent the enemy from taking it, or move ahead of the objective, but don't sit directly on it. So as you can see, I've maintained a lot of my units because and avoided a lot of that rocket artillery because the opponent is hitting the objective, but I'm no longer there.